Let's go, everybody. It is Thursday night. That means it is time for the Hammer Nail Show, episode number 48 this week. I'm Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and to my side is my partner, Jessie Nayls, who works with all 49ers SI and just an overall pretty good 49er fan. How you doing tonight, Jessie?
Holy crap. What is going on around the NFL? It's funny because March Madness, Jack, started tonight, right?
Yes.
Talking about basketball. But the NFL has gotten even crazier. I don't know how Aaron Rodgers is feeling tonight after signing a big deal, but Davante Adams is a Raider, if you haven't heard. First and second round pick go to the Packers. Davante Adams signed a like $28.75 million a year deal across 5 years with the Raiders to reunite with Derek Carr. And then the Falcons pushed back the deal with Matt Ryan till Tuesday. So basically the Falcons had until tomorrow. They had a roster bonus with Matt Ryan. They don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. There was rumor that they were going to be out if Deshaun Watson didn't make his decision tonight. Doesn't sound like he's going to make his decision. We'll talk about how that impacts the 49ers here in a bit. But they pushed that roster bonus back till Tuesday to give Deshaun Watson and his team time to figure things out, which means this Jimmy Garoppolo thing goes on for God knows how long. And if you're already stressed about it, be ready to be stressed until, I don't know, at least next week when we go on Thursday, I would imagine. What are your thoughts with this whole damn thing?
No, that's oh, you just made a really good point. I forgot all about the I saw the whole deal with Davante Adams, but I forgot all about the fact that he played college ball with Carr out in Fresno. That's amazing. You know, I know of Davante Adams from his time at Palo Alto High School. I forgot all about the fact that they played together. What a pickup by the Raiders. That's exciting news. I saw some folks on or someone on Twitter talking about how he felt bad for the quarterback out there, for Aaron Rodgers. You know, the not having his guys. Maybe if Aaron Rodgers, I don't feel bad for Aaron Rodgers. Maybe instead of taking $50 million off the cap this year, he should have taken a little bit less money. It would have helped them out, right?
I agree. I mean, this is something that Tom Brady's done for many years. You already see it's built into Mahomes' contract that every year they can restructure him. This is what great winners ultimately do. And for as good as Aaron Rodgers is, as great as Aaron Rodgers is, frankly, I mean, arguably a top 5 quarterback of all time, depending on how you view things, this man's probably only going to leave with 1 Super Bowl ring. And a lot of that he can blame himself for, not only for, some questionable play at times in the playoffs, but more so because he wasn't willing to take less. And now you've got a situation where your only real receiver is gone. Now, they did get some compensation, a first and a second round pick. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. But what does that mean? I mean, if I'm them, you got to now sign a wide receiver and maybe draft one. I don't know. This whole thing is wild. The NFC, I mean, is there any talent left in the NFC other than the Rams and the 49ers? Like, where is the talent?
Oh, I think that goes back. You can tie this into the 49ers a little bit in that the 49ers earlier in the week on Monday or Tuesday were connected to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the speed receiver from Green Bay. And so maybe now this move opens up a spot for him to go back to Green Bay as one of the options. But if you watch the Packers play the 49ers in that second round, in the divisional round last year, what's going to happen? Because poor Aaron Rodgers, he couldn't throw the ball to anybody than Davante Adams and the running back over there that whole game.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, he was targeted. In fact, what was the final play of the game, right? Or the final play, the last chance they had on their final drive, he had a dig route open over the middle of the field, chose to go to Adams deep in double coverage. Now that guy's gone. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise because it forces him to actually move the ball around a little bit more. But I'm not scared of Green Bay anymore. Like, Davante Adams was kind of the boogeyman when you play Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is great. Don't get me wrong, but the combination of him and Adams is really what scared you about Green Bay. I'm not scared to play Green Bay anymore. There's nothing over there that worries me. Aaron Rodgers is just like any other quarterback. If you can get pressure on him, and if you can single up their receivers and force pressure on Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, man. This whole thing is wild. And I know fans are frustrated. I'm a little frustrated that Jimmy's still on this roster. I'm a little frustrated about some of the moves, but ultimately the NFC has gotten a lot worse. Like, a lot worse. It's happened across the board. Now the Rams made a hell of a deal today. They have 50 wide receivers over there. Aaron Rodgers has none in Green Bay. I don't know what the hell's going on, but it's crazy. Free agency is fun, man.
Yeah, real quick before we get started with some of our topics, I'll average says, "Let's go." I'm ready for it. It's been a long week, but it's getting good, and getting on with Jesse is always a lot of fun. So looking forward to that. Raphael, good to see you. And he says, "What's up, Jack, Jesse, and everyone?" It's always great to have him in here. Brad Brown, he hits you. Same thing you just said. I feel the same way. A lot of what we're seeing right now is just some insane stuff going on. And then what's going on with the quarterbacks is really insane as well, because you're just seeing so much movement on a you usually don't see this kind of movement out of quarterbacks. And it's like, we went into free agency with the Carson Wentz move having just kind of occurred, and everybody felt like, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to become a Colt. That still hasn't happened. Is he ever going to leave?
Gotcha. Jack, I got to be honest. I'm really starting to believe that there's a possibility this guy comes back. And if you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said there is no chance. Now, I do think he ultimately leaves, but okay, so let's try to break this thing down. Deshaun Watson is choosing between, it looks like, the Falcons and the Saints. If he goes to the Falcons, that's not good for the 49ers, because Matt Ryan is going to take precedence over anything Jimmy does. Matt Ryan ends up, let's say, with the Colts. All right. So now the Colts are out of the running. The Browns just said that they're denying the trade request from Baker Mayfield. I don't know what's going on there. Let's say Baker State. Then what? Then we've got the Panthers. We've got the Saints. Well, Jameis Winston's probably going to get that Saints job. And then the Panthers, I mean, is there any guarantee at this point? Like, there's a real shot that they're either going to get nothing for Jimmy, or he's going to stay on this team, because I don't know, man. This is crazy. If you had to place a bet on him staying on this roster at this point, like, what do you think? Do you think that the possibility this week versus last week's just gone way up? Like, would you feel much better about that bet today than you did last week?
Not at all. I wouldn't feel comfortable about it at all, because I've seen the comments that you've made, and I've seen it from other different folks, and it makes complete sense. It's just it's just been domino after domino. It's like, oh, as soon as this happens, Garoppolo, Jimmy's going to be gone. This happens, it's going to play out. I mean, hopefully for the 49ers' sake, it happens, early next week. Like you said, Atlanta pushed the decision time back on Ryan's, I think, until, what did you say, Tuesday?
Tuesday, yeah, until Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, so I hopefully the 49ers will be able to get out of this thing by middle of next week, early next week, whatever, to get out from underneath this contract. Not that it really changes a whole lot of what they're doing, because until they start to make some other moves with their own guys, they don't really have enough money to go out and splurge on anybody. They need to get this thing done. I understand what they're doing. I don't have a problem with it from a standpoint of trying to get some value back from him with the trade. So I don't mind them doing that. I think it's the smart play. But the longer it drags out, they are going to get into some issues with missing out on some of these mid-tier guys, which is really where they're going to probably be going next anyway.
Yeah, I would say so. And, to me, it's probably less about missing out on free agents and more about, like, what have they passed up to this point, if anything, right? Like, it was reported that there was a second round pick on the table. That may or may not be true, but let's go with it being true. Well, now if they get, I don't know, a fourth round pick, and people heard a second round pick, where, there's a lot of disappointment there. I just feel like the longer this drags on, the more upset, not that it matters, they don't care, but the more upset that the fan base is going to be, because I think it puts pressure on them to get something good. Like, for example, if they would have came out 2 weeks ago and said, listen, Lance is our guy. We really respect Jimmy. We love what he brought to us. Jimmy wants to choose his next destination. We just need to clear the money. It's time for us to separate. We're going to go ahead and let Jimmy walk and let him choose his next destination. And we're going to do that by cutting him. We rework the contract or whatever. I don't know if they could even do that, but to forego the $7.5 million and oblige him, I think people would have been happier with that than waiting an extra 2-3 weeks and getting a fourth or a fifth round pick. Like, I think this waiting and sitting, whether it's true or not, people associate that with, oh my God, look at these great free agents that are signing. I mean, Chandler Jones and Hassan Reddick, and they could have had JC Jackson instead of Charvarius Ward. Like, that's the way that people think. And I don't necessarily agree with that side of things. But no matter how you slice it, it's still $25 million that you're waiting to clear your books. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, 25 million to not be able to use, regardless of what you're trying to do, does hamper you a little bit. There's just no way around it. Now, how much is it changing their plans or hampering their plans? I don't think we'll ever know, but we certainly can speculate.
Yeah, I don't think it hampers them too much. They have what they're 9.1, almost 9.15 or whatever underneath the cap right now. And today they announced the signings of Ward and Oren Burks. So we know that those contracts are done. So we know that those two contracts are going to fit in that window, that $9.1 million window. So we don't know. We haven't seen those be processed. We don't know what the value of those is yet. At least I haven't seen it come across. Maybe you have on Twitter, but I have not seen it. And so we don't know what year one of those contracts is going to look like. And so that's if you just kind of play it out and you just to look at the numbers of where the 49ers are currently right now, because I know we'll get into some of the restructures here in a minute, but just with where they are right now after the moves that they have made, they've picked up 2 players, 3 eventually with the other guy that they picked up, the defensive lineman yesterday that they picked up, Ridgeway. Who's only going to count 1.8 million against the books for 2022. I think what's happening here is the 49ers, if you take that out, let's just say that those 3 guys take up all 9 million of what they have now, right? Now you're left with only having Garoppolo's $25.5 million to play with. But when you take that $25.5 million, about 8 of that is going to the rookies. So you're left with 17, which is a lot of money to play with. You could have signed, you might be able to sign a guy here or there, right? And I don't know if the Niners are going to splurge on. I think, are the Niners going to splurge on somebody? They might next week. The 49ers have been really big when they go to splurge on being the team that does that week 2, week 3, kind of down the road after these veteran guys. They've been out there for a little while, and then they go and get them. That's what we've seen them do. So we'll see what happens. I think that's why I'm kind of saying I think the Garoppolo deal needs to be done early next week to really clear this out for them. If not, they'll be able to still work it. They can save some more money if they decide, if they really want Jimmy Ward and Emmanuel Mosley to be around long term. Those are 2 more moves that they can make to save themselves some money. And I wouldn't want to see them push back money anymore with Trent Williams, but those other 2 were moves that I wouldn't be upset about, or maybe even Samson Ebukam. So we'll see.
I mean, they to me they had one big move in them, and when I say big move, I mean 18 million and under. Like, that's really realistically what they could afford. When I was going through, and I'm no cap guru by any means, but I was trying to figure out like where they could push money back, how much they could actually push back, getting rid of Jimmy, realistically fitting everything under. And I figured one anywhere from 15 to 18 million. Charvarius Ward was kind of that deal, right? I mean, regardless of how they do it annually, it works out to be around what is it, 14, 15. So that's basically your deal. Like, that's your one deal. So when Hassan Reddick went off at 15, I was like, damn, that was a missed opportunity. It's why I said that I wanted to get Tyrann Mathieu. I figured he'd be around 15, 16 a year. And that's kind of what I was looking at. I figured JC would go closer to 2021. I was definitely wrong about that. So they could have fit his contract under as well, but I don't think that big move there is another big move. You only have so much money. You can only move around so much money, and you only have so much. I know people like to think that the salary cap's not a real thing. It absolutely is a real thing. When you go look at how teams move money around and the way they build their contracts, teams do contracts different ways. Some teams like to give outs in their contracts to save themselves. Some teams like to give areas of opportunity to keep pushing money back. There's so many ways you can build a contract. The way the 49ers do it, they didn't really have much more than realistically around 31 million that they could have pushed back on top of the Jimmy contract. When you add in what they were over the cap, which was close to 10 mil, you add in the rookie deals, that's another 8. You add in bringing back some of your own guys and signing one big name player. I mean, there's your money right there. So I think, for the most part, they're done with like the big name guys. Now, maybe they can get lucky and somebody gives them a bargain deal. We'll see. It could still be a big name player that comes, but they're not going to come for a big time contract. They just don't have the money to do that anymore. And so I think that's why they're comfortable with this Jimmy thing lingering a little bit, because to me, what I'm seeing from the 49ers, and maybe you're seeing something different, um, we could probably just get into it if you want, which is what they can do, what we expect for the rest of free agency. But like for me, when I look at the 49ers, I'm seeing that they're kind of waiting to see the what their current players are doing and see how many they can bring back, right? I think they were probably a little caught off guard with the Mostert thing. Maybe he signed a little bit quicker than what they expected, especially after Miami had already brought in a running back. And I think that they're looking at it saying, all right, Tart, go out and find a deal. DJ Jones, go find a deal. Lake can go find a deal and come back. And if we can't match it, then see you later. We want to bring you back. And some of those guys have already priced themselves out, the Mostert, the Tomlinson, the DJ Jones, but some of those guys are still there. You've still got the Verettes, you've still got the Tarts, the K1 Williams, all those guys. So I think that they are comfortable with where they're at. I think they figure most of those guys are probably going to take another week or so to figure out what kind of money they can get anyways, because they're not the big name free agents. And so they got time to kind of just sit back and chill. And that's what they're doing. So it'll be curious to see who they actually bring in. But I think the 49ers are probably right where they want to be and are comfortable here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the 49ers, they're in a good spot. I'm looking at this offseason. I was thinking about this earlier today because there's just, you see so many people getting frustrated with the Jimmy Garoppolo thing because he's still here and, they got to get rid of him now so that they have money they can go spend. They're wasting their time. They're blowing it. Right. So you see that when you see that kind of angst on Twitter all the time over the last 4 days, especially. And so, I'm just kind of sitting back and I was thinking, I'm like, we've seen this before from the Foreigners. We saw this from them in 2011 with a different regime, when that group came in and they got rid of a bunch of guys and different things happened there. We've seen this from them, even this team last year in free agency. We saw them kind of take a slow approach and then they brought their guys back. And I was really thinking to myself, and it was like, you and I we go back and forth on stuff with like Jimmy Garoppolo during the game, right? Like a play during the game, and you'll get upset with a throw, and I'll be like, I'm like, yeah, but they scored a touchdown at the end of the drive. You know what I'm saying? So I guess this is a long way of me saying that I'm going through this offseason kind of pretending like this is a Jimmy Garoppolo drive in the season, where instead of blowing up my gasket, here week 1, like 4 days into the free agency, I'm going to give it some time and probably sometime around July, I'll if probably even before then, because we'll know how this team is going to be set up shortly after the draft, probably around draft time is when, if things haven't figured themselves out, that's when you'll see me maybe blow a gasket finally. Usually I'm pretty calm, but I'm not too upset with anything that I've seen, because the guys they've lost are guys we expected them to lose. They haven't lost anybody yet that it's like, ooh, I wasn't expecting him not to be a 49er. I mean, I wanted Raheem Mostert to stay because I felt like he brings an element that they need, especially you don't want to have Deebo Samuel running the ball as much as you did last year and stuff like that. There were guys I wish they could have brought back, but at the end of the day, they don't get me like, ooh, that was a mistake by the 49ers to not bring that player back. So we'll see how it works out. As far as free agency and moving into the future, I think you're right. I'll tell you one position I think they might get lucky at is safety. I think they might have Jaquowski Tart come back, because that safety market seems to be not quite as strong as everybody thought it was going to be. There's so many of them out there. And I think on top of it, the other thing that's depressing the market on the safety side is, from everything I hear, the draft class is supposed to be pretty good on the back end. So I think those are things that are going to be an issue with some of these safeties. So that's why, like, I know you're big on Matthew.
Matthew. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm more of not in his, I'd rather see them bring Tart back if it was going to be one of those two. But we'll see. I mean, those are the kind of signings I think we're going to see, though. We're going to see them let it play out. They're going to maybe have one more big name that's out there. I was asked this question yesterday and I'm like, it depends on what you think a big name is, because Do you think the tight end from Cleveland is a big name if they were to bring him in now as a free agent? It just kind of depends on what your expectations are. But I do expect to see them add a tight end, probably a safety, maybe another defensive back, pass rusher. We'll see them make a move on the offensive line, I believe. So, and on the defensive line, I thought the move they made yesterday was interesting in terms of what he does compared to what they've lost.
I like the way that you compared this early free agency to a Jimmy Garoppolo drive, because it's kind of what it is. Like, that's what you're seeing on Twitter, right? You're just seeing the ups and the downs and the ebbs and the flows. It's funny because people are going through all ranges of emotions. The same people, by the way, are like, day one, I'm in Twitter space a lot. And some people were like, oh my God, we need to get this big free agent and this big free agent. And then like 2 days later, they're like, well, I would settle for like this free agent, which is like a C-level guy. And then it's like, why is Jimmy still here? And he's going to be gone by tomorrow. And then he's not gone by tomorrow. It's like the emotion is all over the place. And it's just like Jimmy's whole tenure with the 49ers. It's pretty funny that you compared the two, because I'm 100% on board with you. And somebody asked me today, they said, if Jimmy's not gone by next week, are you like, how mad are you? And I was like, honestly, I'm more looking like, as long as Jimmy's not here by the time the season starts, then I'm good to go, right? Like, if training camp rolls around and Jimmy's here, yeah, it's like, let's fire John Lynch. Like, I'm leading that charge. But right now, it's like, I'm cool. Like, it is what it is. I can't. Here's the thing. I said two things a couple weeks ago. One, I trust what the 49ers are doing. This is the sixth season they're entering into the offseason, right? Like, I trust what they have. I'm sure they've got a plan in place. The second thing is, doesn't mean I'm not going to criticize them, but at the end of the day, after I really take everything all in, even if I don't agree with it, I'm still going to trust that they've got it under control. And so right now, that's where I'm at. Like, am I happy about every little thing? No. Do I feel like maybe they paid Ward a little bit too much? Sure. But at the same time, like, if you want to get good guys, you have to overpay sometimes. 49ers may have overpaid slightly. Is it awesome that Jimmy's here? No, I'm not excited about that. But at the end of the day, I'm trusting what the 49ers are doing. And so until they give me a reason not to trust, meaning let's see where we're at in a couple weeks or even a couple months, then I'm just going to try my best to chill and still criticize everything along the way. It's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's kind of where I am too. It's going to be you just got to let it go. I think though, when you talk about Garoppolo really quick in terms of when you'd get angry with him being on the team, if Garoppolo's on the team when training camp starts at the end of July, I'm going to really have some hard questions in my mind as to what this organization did all off season. But at the same time, I'm going to love it because I'm going to have all kinds of people angry that I can write stories to. Can you not hear me? Did I go out? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Can you guys hear me over here in the comment section? Let me know if you hear me. Oh, you're muted, Jessie. Jessie, you're muted. Hey, can you guys hear me? All right, you hear me. Good. It's Jesse's mic that's off. But I was hopefully he'll come back because I don't know where he went. I think maybe he's reconnecting his mic. But what I was saying then real quick is that if Jimmy Garoppolo is still on this 49ers team when training camp starts, that's when I think we all have to have a big problem with it. Really, even before then, because it will impact them. But the most that they can clear right now in cap space is if you do all the deals that they have in front of them that they can do, which isn't a lot. You're looking at Trent Williams. You're looking at who was it? I just saw this. Trent Williams. Give me a second. I'll find it again. You have Trent Williams, Fred Warner, Jimmy Ward, Samson Ebukam, Emmanuel Mosley, Mike McGlinchey. Those are the guys that you can do. So if you were to from Warner, Trent Williams, and Jimmy Ward, you can get about $12.3 million more against the cap. That's not enough for the 49ers to really make trades through here, and I hope Jesse comes back because I was having a good time talking to him. He was talking about something that really wanted to get into. So that's when I have an issue with where we are with Jimmy Garoppolo. So we'll see how that works out. Are you back?
No, I don't know. My mic's not working for some reason. I don't know if you can hear me, but it's coming out of my computer. So hold on a second.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, it's just coming out of my computer. I'm going to try to mess with this audio here.
Yeah, but I just got done talking about Garoppolo, basically saying that if it'll be bad for the team, but it'll be great for me because it'll be fun to go back and be able to talk about it because we'll have a lot of fans that are going to be upset. So that'll be good stuff to troll the fan base with, and some good articles we can write during that time. But while you're working on that, I'm going to throw out really quick because this goes along with our predicting future free agency moves. Hopefully, Juan is still in here. Juan, thank you for the donation. He asks, how would you see us using a Cordero Patterson, Deebo Samuel duo?
Oh, I mean, I wanted Patterson last year through free agency.
So I fix the mic. There we go. I wanted Patterson last year in free agency. He was my big guy that I want because if you remember, he sat for so long. And I was like, oh man, this is the guy. Like during late free agency, there was a couple guys I wanted to sign. One of them was a nickel corner, and then the other one was Patterson. And then it came out this year that before they played the Falcons, that Shanahan basically said, hey, we've tried to get Patterson a couple times actually. And I think that he sees the vision as well. I would love Patterson on this roster. Just imagine him, Deebo, Trey Lance, all in the running game. I mean, there's so much you can do with those guys. If Deebo ever gets injured, you still could kind of keep things together, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for a few games. If that were to happen, you also can get a guy that can return kicks. I mean, imagine come playoff time, him and Deebo returning kicks and punts. Like it would be incredible. And you talk about big name guys, and that was the first thing that came to my mind, Jack, to be real with you, is that's a guy that may sit again through a few waves of free agency. And as this thing slows down, maybe they can bring him in for a 2-year, $12 million deal with incentives that get it up to 15. And he's cool with that. I would rather pay him personally $6 a year than I would most or $3 a year. I just think he can do more. So, maybe that's a big name guy that you get for fairly cheap.
Yeah, Patterson is a guy who will be around later on in free agency, probably, just because there's a number of receivers that are going to move, I think, before he does. So he's going to be around for a couple of weeks, I think. And then really quick, this is a really fun question here from Juguayo 56. Thank you for the donation. He says, I'm not a cat person. Is there a possibility the Jimmy contract could be restructured by signing him to a 2 or 3 year extension? We did get to the NFC title.
That's me getting upset.
And I'm going to say right here, and it's okay if Jesse gets upset, but if Jesse and I have been doing this show for long enough that he's hurt, he should have heard me. I love this question because this is something that I've told Jesse on this show could happen, right, Jesse? How many times? I think I've told you like 2 or 3 times on different shows that there is a possibility that you could keep Jimmy Garoppolo for future years if he's willing to work with you, right? Not that this is going to happen, but absolutely they could. If Jimmy Garoppolo wants to stay as a 49er, if he's up for it and he's willing to redo his deal, the 49ers could restructure his contract, much like what they did with D Ford in a way, right? They could give him a signing bonus of $25.5 million, which is all the money he's going to get this year anyway, and then buy down the rest of it, because that's the one thing with Garoppolo's contract that's always been good is if the team wanted to keep him and extend him long term, they could have done it after the Super Bowl, they could have done it last year, they could have done it this year, they could have done whatever they want, because Garoppolo's contract was so top heavy in terms of the base salary that it allowed you to make moves. That's because remember when it comes to cap, in order to restructure contracts, you need to be able to have base salary that you can restructure, basically turn that into signing bonus. And yes, the 49ers could do that with them and turn and create void years like they did with D Ford or whatever like that. Are they going to do that? I don't think so, but they could if they want to. And I'm all here for it because I'm ready to see Jesse turn red when that on the show when that happens.
Here's the thing, and this is what I think that there is a way, yes. And the way that I look at it though is I think that there's a locker room dynamic at play that I think weighs too heavily into this, more so than the money, right? And it comes down to, I'll give you an example. When we talk about comparing Jimmy G to other quarterbacks, right? I've said many times that I think Carson Wentz, player for player, is a much better player. Not a much better. He's a better player than Jimmy, right? He has way more physical tools. That much is evident. But Jimmy is clearly a leader and Carson's not, right? Like Carson is never going to have that cachet. Now, maybe he can eventually get it. Like maybe Washington, third time's a charm. I don't know. Baker Mayfield's another one. This guy is not a leader. Jimmy is a leader. And when the difference of play is, I don't know, 10, 15%, you're going to go with a guy that's a leader versus a guy that's a net negative in that area. And so those are things that aren't factored in when you talk about player versus player. Well, one thing that we're not factoring into this whole Jimmy thing when we talk about can they keep him, should they keep him, will they keep him, whatever. Mm-hmm. If he's on this roster, it's his team. It just is. Quite frankly, it is. And Armstead coming out and saying what he said, talking, I don't know if it was a Warriors halftime show, post game, whatever. He talked about how basically he equates winning with Jimmy Garoppolo. And so if Jimmy's on this team, he can't be the backup. So are you going to keep pushing back this Trey Lance thing? You guys said that Trey Lance was good enough to use 3 first-round picks on. He was the future of the franchise. Multiple times you kicked the tires on moving Jimmy G, including this offseason. So if you bring him back again, do you think he can be a backup on this team with this locker room? I don't believe that that's a possibility. I just don't.
No, I agree with you. I don't believe he's going to be back. I think the question's funny because it's possible. There's a possibility. You just have to understand that there is a possibility that it could be done. But it takes 2 sides to tango. I don't think the 49ers want to do that. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo wants to do that. So I don't think that would happen. But as we're going through this and we're talking about restructuring contracts, I'm going to throw this one up really quick because I know you and I had a little bit of back and forth on Twitter. But, the 49ers did buy a little bit of cap space a couple of days ago with the restructure of DeFord. So I want to get into that with you a little bit because I understand where you're coming from, but I also think that this was a good move. We'll just I'll let you say your piece and I'll say mine. Or we can talk about it.
Yeah. So for me, like D Ford's not gonna be in their plans long term, right? Maybe he tries to give it another go. Maybe he retires after June. And I don't know like what the restructure looks like. I know with like Richburg, what they did, they restructured and then he retired. And maybe that's the situation here, or maybe they're gonna cut him anyways. I just knew that they had around $2.5 million that they could have saved after June 1st, right? They could have designated a post June 1st cut. They obviously saved, a couple million more by doing it this way, but they are kicking the can down the road. And I understand like the cap's going up pretty significantly. What's 2 extra million next year? Probably not that significant, but this year it certainly is, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but at the same time, there's a lot of big contracts that really kick in next year for the 49ers. I got to imagine that Ward, who they just signed, his contract's going to be pretty big next year. It'll probably be bigger next year than it is this year. Trent Williams goes up astronomically. Kittle's is big. Armstead, obviously at that time, Bosa, possibly, Debo, possibly Bosa, Warner. Like this is a lot of big contracts. Now you can continue to kick the can down the road, but I just felt like there were other ways to get under that. And they did do those things also, by the way, which is, we've talked about this. We talked about Armstead. Ward hasn't happened yet. That's surprising. But we talked about Armstead. We talked about Kittle. These were ones that we thought that they definitely could do. They did those also. But I don't like kicking the can down the road and spending money on a player that's not going to be on the roster next year. If you're going to add more money to the future for a player that's probably almost certainly not going to be here in 2023. I just don't like doing that. I don't care if it's 500,000 or if it's $1 million, 5 million, 10 million. Like, I just don't like paying for players that aren't here. And so that was kind of my thing with it. And by the way, Jimmy Garoppolo is still on this roster. Like, that was another way to clear cap space. So I personally Didn't like it. I understand it. I know why they did it. I just didn't necessarily agree with it unless it means he's retiring or getting cut regardless.
Yeah, Emiliano says Jesse's so mad about this cap situation, he's not wearing his hat tonight. But no, and I think the thing to look at is I get what you're saying. If they waited, but I think let's look at it this way: that if they had gone ahead and waited until June 1 to make this cut, they only saved $2.4 million. Mm-hmm. But you got to remember with the June 1 cut, you also take on dead money in future years that way as well. It basically, they get you coming or going, right? Because a June 1 cut is like a credit card, like all this stuff is when you start doing this kind of stuff. Anytime you're kicking the can down the road, it's like, think of it like a credit card. Because if they had gone to the June 1 cut, I think that they were going to pay like $4.5 million next year and $4 million for a couple of years or something like that. The way that they did it increased. I think this cap hit stays the same for next year. It might be up slightly, but it's still around $8 million next year. And really all they did was they bought 2 void years with it, is really the way that it worked out. The next 3 years, if he plays this year, he plays this year, but he's not going to be on the team following because the next 3 years are all void years. So that if you've seen the agreement. So, the more that you look at it, I mean, I understand what they did. And with the salary cap going up, those 2 void years that they added in 24 and 25, I mean, that's like, you and I throwing down 20 at the pizza parlor for a pizza, because it's $1 million off of a cap that's going to be, so much higher at that point, even though they will have bigger deals. So that's why I don't mind it. I know what you're saying, especially with a guy that's not going to be around. I got that point, but my whole thing was it made sense so that they have the money now instead of waiting until June to have the money, and they're getting more.
Yeah, they definitely are. And I understand that the money this year is more important. And it all depends on who they bring back, who they end up signing, all those other things. So, it's one of those things that at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. My 2 cents on it was like, okay, like keep kicking the can down on the road on a guy that you're not going to have on the roster. Like you may say it's $1 million here, $1 million there, but there's a lot of big effing contracts that you're going to have. And I'm sure that you're going to need a couple million here, even in 2024, right? Like when you're really trying to make a Super Bowl run. So we'll see how it works. It may not end up hurting them at all. It certainly does help them this year. I definitely can't argue that. I just was like, dude, really? Like Jimmy's still on this roster, yet you're restructuring D Ford. Like, what are we doing?
It's the same thing that this team did with the center that was injured, Richburg. It's the same kind of thing that they did with Richburg, and they also did it similarly with when they did the extension. I think last year they did a small extension with Laken Tomlinson, as well as they did last year. The year before they did an extension, they added in a void year to save themselves a little bit of cap room. So those are both coming to roost this year. So we'll see how it works out. In 2020, in 2023, that's where the big one hits, is going to be next year's. So we'll see how that works out.
And that's exactly what you just hit on, right? Like they did this a couple years ago, and now the reason they're having to do it again is because these other contracts that they did a couple years ago, you know what I mean? So it always rolls. It will get you at some point. Like it may not be a lot, but it will eventually get them. How much may not matter, but it could. You never know.
Yeah, 100%. And then, this wasn't a topic that we threw out, but I had talked with you about. I talked about it the other day, and I saw Notorious. I saw the big Gav over here in our comment section, and he was talking about it. And I don't think he was would be too excited with this move. But do you think the 49ers should pursue Julio Jones?
Oh man, do I think they should? Yes. Yesterday I said the last thing I wanted to see, which is funny that I'm saying this now because it can't happen, was Davante Adams and Julio Jones together in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Well, that can't happen anymore, so I really don't care. But yeah, should they pursue him? Sure. But it all comes down to how much money. Like he's going to make some money from being cut. Am I willing to pay this guy $10 million a year for what he's given the last? No, I'm not. Especially after seeing the Rams sign, God, what's his name, for 15.5, buddy from the Bears. Anyways,
Allen Robinson.
There we go. Listen, Allen Robinson's much younger, healthier, 15.5. Yeah, if we can get Julio for 8, sure, let's do it. Like I'm into it, But am I like going over the top to make sure Julio's on this team? No, I'm definitely not.
No, I wouldn't say go after. I wouldn't say go over the top to try to get him. But if you can get him in on a team friendly deal, or something that works on both sides, obviously, but is a little bit more team friendly, meaning on the lower side of the pay scale, I think you do it. I think it was Wayne Breezy on Twitter that I saw ask this question originally, and it made me go back and look at some numbers. And because I think the question was something about Julio Jones. How would you feel about Julio Jones? Would it be similar to what the 49ers did when they brought in Randy Moss back in 2012 or something like that? Was something that, like he said. And so I went back and I looked at it, and I'm going to tell you, and here's the funny piece though, is both these guys have averaged over their careers about the same number of yards per reception. In Randy Moss's last season before joining the 49ers, he played for a bunch of different teams in 2010, and he averaged 14 yards per reception. Last year, Julio Jones in Tennessee, 14 yards per reception.
Oh, no doubt.
And then when Moss came to the 49ers, he was about 15 and a half, I think he was that year. And so if you could get that kind of production of Julio Jones as being your number 3 guy, that would be huge for the 49ers. If you had Julio, if you had him and you're able to still use Juwan Jennings, and maybe you don't find that big tight end that you want as your number 2 tight end, so you use Jennings as more of your like slide tight end kind of role, which the 49ers kind of do anyway at times. I mean, I could see it if they could bring him in on a team friendly deal. I'd like to see him come in. I definitely wouldn't hate it. I know his numbers were down this year in terms of overall yards, but his numbers were down in terms of targets and everything else too.
Yeah, and you're not going to rely on him to be your 1, 2, 3. I mean, he's your 4th option, right? Julio Jones at 34 years old, 33 years old is your 4th option. That's arguably the best 4th option in the league outside of what the Rams are doing, because they've got an all-star crew over there. But, and then you've got Jennings as well. I mean, listen, if Julio gets injured and Jennings is there, I'm not mad. Like, I'm cool rolling with Jennings. So, yes, am I interested in kicking the tires on Julio? For sure I am. Yes, absolutely. But, I'm just not going to overpay him. That's the big deal.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. I'm with you. I don't want to. I do not want to overpay anybody if they can. Right? We won't know until down the road, really, if it's an overpay, because we might look at it. They might sign him, and we might all be screaming next week. Oh, what are they doing? And then he goes out and has a really good year, and they're like, oh, that was worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. We'll see. And then, like Andrew says over here, it's only the second day of the new season. No, it is. I don't care. I want it. I want it now. I want the 49ers to make moves. I want to have excitement. I want to have moves on a daily basis. If they don't have it, I'm going to scream until they do.
It's like the girl on Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, like the spoiled brat. That's us right now.
I tweeted that at you.
Oh, did you really?
I don't know if it was you. I think
it may have been. I didn't see it.
I don't know. I don't think I tweeted it at you. I think it was in a thread that you were on when we were talking about.
Oh,
and one of the things recently, if you go on my Twitter, you'll see it. It's like, I want it now. And she falls down the thing because she's the bad egg, right? So, yeah, no, it's totally. It's the 49ers right now. The 49ers fans, the majority of 49ers fans, if you go on Twitter, are Veruca Salt. They really are. They just are. And it's fun to watch. And every once in a while, it's kind of why I kind of joke, and I've been throwing out a little bit more jokes during the offseason, because everybody's just so angry. I don't even think they got my joke last night. I think
it's what's funny though is like, everybody's like a fan a different way, right? And I'm definitely like one of those emotional fans. Like, you see it. Like, if you just watch my timeline throughout the game, the emotions, the ups and the downs, like I'm an open book with it. And people, obviously later will try to use things against you, like, ooh, this didn't age well. It's like, yeah, no crap, it didn't. It was the middle of the second quarter. My emotions were different. But like I'm like that, so like I'll just throw out my emotions, and people get so oh my God, like you didn't like this signing either. You're so negative. It's like, come on, chill out. Like, let me just work through my emotions here, right? That's all I'm doing.
Right? Exactly. And like Gav says, why so serious? I don't know, man. I don't know. I used to be this way when I was like, in my 20s, back in like the 90s, when the 49ers were winning Super Bowls year after year, or, in contention. I mean, this team hasn't been in that position. They're like, what, they're an up and down team. Hopefully they'll start to become a team that does it year after year after year, especially with the quarterback situation that they have. Real quick.
One thing I can promise though, just real quick, if the 49ers win a Super Bowl, the positivity oozing out of this guy, because I am the emotional one, certainly will be over the top. I guarantee it.
Then at that point, it's going to be everything they do is going to be right. Correct?
Exactly. Yep.
There you go. There you go. Richie says, thank you for the donation, Richie. He says, La'el Collins should be the only target right now. Trey needs an O-line in front of him to give him the best chance to succeed.
Yeah, he'll be a Bengal tomorrow. So
is he meeting with the Bengals?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I know that they've been making some moves. I'm not sure about everything. And there's been so much going on. And then the 49ers had a couple of press conferences today. And so I was off Twitter a little bit. I don't know. Did you I got to say, I think I have a new favorite 49er, and his name is Travarius Ward.
That was so funny. The way he ended the presser.
Yeah. I mean, is this thing off? Yeah. You did good. Oh, you guys asking a bunch of whack ass. that was so funny, man. I was cracking up on that thing, but it was perfect. I mean, we all ask stupid stuff, and you and I come on here, we might have a stupid old question or whatever, or what have you, and there were a couple doozies in his. I'll just say it that I'm not gonna name.
He's got some swag to him. I like it. It's interesting because obviously we know how Tyrann Mathieu is. We know how Frank Clark is. We know how Tyreek Hill and Kelsey are. Like, all these guys have a lot of swag, and now you see it with Ward, and you understand like why the Chiefs are as good as they've been for the last few years. Quite frankly, I mean, these guys have a lot of competitive spirit. They're very confident in who they are as individuals. They were confident in who they were as a team, and it's one of those things where you can go a little bit overboard sometimes with the emotion, and sometimes it hurts you. But in their case, it's worked out well. And I think the 49ers need a little bit of that. They've got the quiet, stoic, the good guy leaders. I think they need a little bit of a spice on this team. And I think Travarius Ward certainly is going to bring that. And I appreciate that. I love it when a player is real. I love it when a player is confident in themselves, and a little swag never hurt anybody. So I'm excited to see Travarius Ward on this team. I really am.
It was good today, right? He was asked something about the Rams and how they're going out and getting all these guys, and they added the Rams added a receiver today that
Allen Robinson.
You already mentioned it, yeah, Allen Robinson, and they already have a pretty good one down there, and they might even be able to bring back Odell Beckham later on, what have you. And I liked his answer; it was pretty quick. He's like, "We got good players too." And then realized that his tone, so he had to add on to it a little bit. But
I'll bet on myself. Listen on every day of the week.
That's kind of what he said. He's like, we got good players too, and that's the thing. When real quick as we go through the where we are right now, we are to this point in the off season. The 49ers have lost two starters. They've lost Laken Tomlinson, they lost DJ Jones. Jones only played 49% of the snaps. So I don't agree. I think Denver had a big overpay for DJ Jones. Good for him to get $10 million a year, but to play 51% of the snaps and what he brings from a pass rushing standpoint, I think they overpaid him. And we've seen some moves there. But outside of that, the 49ers haven't lost any starters. They're losing players, but they're not losing starters. And most of these guys are losing. I think they have guys already on their roster that they feel good about for the most part.
Well, and I think this goes both ways, right? Like we can say, man, I wish they would bring in this guy. I wish they would, pay a little bit more for this guy. But and there are some good guys, like I said, that kind of got away a little bit, right? Like I would have loved I would have rather paid Reddick 15 a year than what we paid Charvarius. I would have rather paid JC Jackson 16 and a half or whatever he's getting. But I would rather pay Charvarius what we paid him than paying, I don't know, a 34-year-old Von Miller, $25 million a year for the next however, you know what I mean? Like it could be worse. I also, the Rams, cool. They got a hell of a deal on Allen Robinson. I'll give them that. But $15.5 million a year allocated to that when they just lost their left tackle to retirement. They don't have really any high-end draft picks this year. And you're already rich at the position. I mean, let's not forget they have Kupp, they have Woods, they have Jefferson. Odell was hanging there. They can bring him back or could have brought him back and still could. I mean, like you just added the biggest luxury piece. And I know that you won a Super Bowl, but I would rather the 49ers add a Lyle Collins over a receiver, a big name receiver, and Allen Robinson. Like at that point, like I feel like it could be worse. Like the 49ers could be in a worse situation. They could have their quarterback wanting to be traded, and we're like, no, we're not going to trade you, and then have no other option, or spending way too much on an older free agent, or just being the Jags and spending way too much on Christian Kirk. Like it could always be worse, right? And so when you look at it from that perspective, the 49ers ultimately have lost guys that we expected them to lose. I don't think many people were confident in those two coming back anyways. Really, are we any worse today than what we were when the end of the season? I would argue we're slightly better with the addition of Ward, Trey Lance playing quarterback. And I think every other team in the division's gotten worse. Even the Rams, who just brought in a big name guy, losing a left tackle and losing a corner to bring in a receiver that you already had 4 good ones. I don't know. I don't look at that and go, oh my God, they're unbeatable now. Like that's just not the way that I see things.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think the one, the biggest question mark is going to be that left guard spot, because you have, is it going to be Aaron Banks? And if it is Aaron Banks, is he going to be able to play at the level that they need him to play at? But the 49ers have a big, a number of offensive linemen that can kind of fill in. They're going to be competing for that role. That's the thing, is I understand the worry about, like, say, the left guard spot, but I have a strong feeling that it's going to be Aaron Banks, and I think he's going to be okay over there. He's going to have to fight for the spot, but I think he's going to get it. Daniel Brunskill is going to be at right guard. The team brought him back. He's going to be a right guard / probably backup center. They brought back the other center as well. I forgot about that. So, but we'll see what they do. It's going to be fun. I think from the defensive tackle spot, though, I think that the move that they made yesterday, bringing in Ridgeway, when you look at the moves that they've done, losing DJ Jones, they lose some run defense, but in Ridgeway and Javon Kinlaw, they're picking up pass rush. So they're losing run stoppers, but they're picking up pass rushers, because if I don't do PFF. I'm not going to pay for it. So right. I don't see all the data, so I don't go over there. I usually use Pro Football Reference for everything. And so Pro Football Reference does a nice piece in their advanced stats, which they give you a pressure total, which is really the things that are most important to me, primarily sacks, knockdowns, because I want to see the more you hit the quarterback, I think the better it helps you. And then they do have a hurries piece in there. So their pressures is the knockdowns, the sacks, and the hurries. Ridgeway in like 156 or 160 snaps less than Jones had more pressures per Pro Football Reference last year. Javon Kinlaw in 2020 played almost the same number of snaps as DJ Jones this year. And if you look at the numbers, Javon Kinlaw had a higher number of pressures than what we saw from DJ Jones this year. So I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to pick up some pass rush. I think the run defense might slack off a little bit, but there's not very many teams in the NFL that you have to worry about having them come out and being consistent with trying to run the ball down your throat, other than the 49ers. Obviously, you're going to see that from Miami when they played the Dolphins this year. But other than that, you don't see teams that are really going to come out and just commit to the run game like the 49ers already, like we're used to seeing from the 49ers.
No, and he's a big guy too, by the way. Ridgeway's 305 pounds himself. That's what DJ Jones was. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to suffer too much in the run game either. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be just fine. We'll see what happens with Arden Key if he comes back. Again, another player that I didn't mention earlier, but that's one that they're probably going to say, hey, go find a deal. We'll see if we want to match it. And if not, then we'll just replace you like we do all these other guys. So, as long as they've got Armstead and as long as they've got Bosa, I mean, they really can plug and play in a lot of these areas. If Kinlaw can come back and be somewhat healthy, I mean, I think he's a pretty good player. To me, he's shown flashes. And to show flashes for a kid that really has had neither training camp. I mean, he hasn't had a training camp yet in his career. Like, let's just be real. We had the COVID training camp thing, and we had this year where he was hurt the whole time. He hasn't really had time to develop. You give him a full training camp, and if he can stay healthy, I know that's a big if, I think he can wreak some havoc. I really do. I think he can be an okay player and a good contributor. And that's really all they need. They don't need a superstar. It would be nice to get one, but they don't need one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch how this thing plays out, because I know we're all getting fired up right now because they're not getting the guys in the free agency, but we still have free agency a long way to go, and then we still have a draft coming up in May, so we still have a ways to go with this thing before this team's finally put together, and we'll see. They might even end up with some picks for Garoppolo. Jimmy might be back. Maybe they're going to restructure him. Who knows? I mean, that would be that well, might be. I'm kidding. I'm going to stop.
Here's the way that I see it, though. Like, even in the draft, like, I feel like what they have 2/3 and a second, so they could go defensive end, safety, guard, or center guard to compete, right? Somebody that could be this future center and then compete for the guard position. Then in the 4th round, they can come back and go on, nickel corner, and I mean, whatever they, wide receiver, who knows, offensive tackle. Like, they have so many picks that they can push around and move around. Really, they can play best player available at 5 or 6 positions of need and just go after it that way. And that's a luxury the 49ers have. Again, we just talked about the Rams. Well, listen, you just added a great luxury piece. That's good on you, but you still have some major holes to fill on this team. Are you going to do that in the draft? Because you really don't have much. You don't have a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd unless they got comp picks. So, I like where the 49ers are at. I really genuinely do.
Yeah, I do too. I think they're in a good spot. It'll be fun to watch how it plays out. I keep seeing, the one thing I'm not going to take is the slander that I keep seeing, needing the pass rusher. Do you guys not realize how good Samson Ebukam is? Seriously. And I'm somewhat joking there, but take a second, step back, and look at what Samson Ebukam did from the moment that he stepped into the starting lineup against Chicago. From Chicago on, once he became a starter, he was played at it took him a little while, but by the middle of the year, especially at the end of the year, he was playing at a very high level opposite Nick Bosa. He hadn't been a pass rusher in his career up at, all dedicated to be a pass rusher. He'd been going back and forth between rushing the passer and playing linebacker. He got to focus on doing one thing for the first time in his career. He got better at it as he went along. If Samson Ebukam is back with the 49ers next year and they don't make any other moves in free agency for defensive ends, I'd be completely fine with that.
Yeah, Ebukam really down the stretch was a bit of a force. I mean, even in the Packer game, the first Packer game, that's when he kind of started to show a little bit. He was held big time in that first Packer game on one of those final plays that really would have won the game. And, maybe Ebukam was looked at a little bit differently if he does get the game-winning sack there on Aaron Rodgers. I think Ebukam has been fine, especially for what he's been paid. He certainly isn't like a Hassan Reddick or a Chandler Jones or any of those guys. I understand that. But he's good, right? Like, he's between him, a Minahu, Willis, that they bring it back, and then you can draft a rookie. Like, I think that they can make things shake pretty okay there. So, it's not the end of the world by any means. It would have been nice to get an elite pass rusher to go opposite of Bosa and help him out. But again, they've got the best defensive line coach arguably in the NFL. They've got some other pretty good pieces there, and they still have some things in the draft that they can utilize to bring in. I mean, it's a deep pass rusher class. If you go pass rush or edge with that 2nd round pick, you're going to get a very, very good player. So they still have multiple ways that they can go about here.
Yeah, I think there's a number of them. So it's going to be interesting. I've only recently started getting into the draft stuff. I'm ready to go. I will say this to the teams. I know we're going to wrap this up with the Jimmy Garoppolo thing just real quick, because I know everybody wants to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. We're all worried where he's going to go. I'm just going to say really quick, if there's a team out there that needs a quarterback, get on my Twitter. There's some video of a really good quarterback that I shot last week. He's a little bit long in the tooth, but he moves pretty good for his age. You might want to just hit him up, and I mean, he might just be a training camp body. He may be something else, but he's a pretty good quarterback, I think. It's a joke. It's a joke. If you haven't already seen it,
I saw you said it to me directly. First of all, it was like, I don't know if you wanted me to be your agent, and I did a horrible job. Here's what happened. If you've seen that video of Jack, Jack knows how much I've hyped up Trey Lance. He needed a hype man, and he was hoping I would be that guy. And I didn't come through for you. I'm not a good friend. I'll own that right now.
Well, the funniest thing is, as I was laughing about, the thing has like I don't know how many views it has. It's wild. And then on top of that, I had people like tweeting at at Browns, at Seahawks, at Colts. I mean, and then I had East Bay Chris today. He put it out there as well when I was talking about how the Browns, are in their situation. We didn't even get into the whole Baker Mayfield thing because I think that's awesome is what's going on out in Cleveland with him. That's like a soap opera. And I was like, they need, and I tweeted out, I just said they need an adult in the room, in that quarterback room, because it's kind of been the joke around Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And then he's like, you mean like, that emoji with my video out there. But real quick, we do have one more super chat. I want to hit it. I know we got to get going. Carson, thanks for the donation. 100% right. I'd rather have Gilmore or La'el Collins. I agree with you. I'd rather have, I don't know about Gilmore. He's a little bit long in the tooth, but La'el Collins would be a very good pickup if they were able to get him. But it sounds like he's going to.
Yeah, listen, that was, I was going to tweet it. And then right when I was getting ready to do so, I saw that he was going to go visit the Bengals. And I'm like, all right, that's pretty much a wrap. But I was going to say, the way that I would counter Robinson going to the Rams is sign La'el Collins. I mean, the only thing you can do is keep the ball from even entering that offense's hand. And that's the way you do it. You just go out, you punish them through the run game, and don't allow them to touch the field. I think that's a great way to go about it.
Yeah, I hear you. So we're going to wrap up the show now. Do you have another show that you got to jump onto now, Jesse?
No, not tonight. I got family in town, and so I'm taking it a little bit light this week. No extra shows. Not doing another one tonight, but you can definitely tap in Last Second Sports. Obviously, if any Jimmy G news breaks or anything super big that needs to be discussed, I'll hop on. But trying to lay a little bit low this week with the family in town. But yeah, definitely tap in Last Second Sports. We're pushing for 5,000. We're a few hundred away. It'd be nice if you could help us out and help us get there. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Get over there and subscribe to Jesse's channel if you haven't already done so. And then while you're here, go ahead and hit that like button, hit subscribe. That's something that I should probably be doing throughout the show, is telling people, reminding people. Rob over on his channel does a really good job of throwing it out there throughout the show. He's a much better host than I am when it comes to that kind of stuff. For football knowledge, this is the spot to be right here, the Hammer and Nail Show on Thursday night at 5:30.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the little bell notification so that you know that when we're live, so you don't ever miss us on Thursday night. And then get yourself over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. Have new stuff going up over there on a daily basis. So thank you a lot, Jesse, for coming on. Thank you to everybody in the comment section. You guys were arguing quite a bit about Chip Kelly over there. I saw you, and yeah, they're big Chip Kelly fans over there. Gav is saying that Chip Kelly's as good as Kyle Shanahan, I think. Something like that.
Oh, jeez. Here we go. All right.
But thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Have a great night. And I will be back tomorrow afternoon or evening with another show. Until then, take care, and we'll talk soon. Have a good night.